Hello students, welcome back. Last day we had gone through the various consequences for the outbreak of the revolt of 1857 and we discussed the four consequences up to relation with the princely state. Now today we shall move the fifth consequence, that is the policy of divide and rule. So, what were the policies of divide and rule followed by the British in India? First and foremost, they divided the princes against people, province against province, caste against caste, group against group, then Hindus against Muslim, as well as educated against uneducated. So, these were the policy of divide and rule followed by the British government. Now let us see that why did the British alienate people against their rulers? People against their rulers. The main purpose was or how they had been done. Means how did the British alienated people from their rulers? The British alienated the people from their rulers by giving them special protections and concession. The questions can be asked. Okay. Again, we have to go through that why did British follow the policy of divide and rule between the Hindus and the Muslims. The main motive was that the Hindus and Muslims of India should never challenge the British Empire in India. They should never unite and pose a danger or a challenge to the British rule in India. Now we are moving towards the next consequence, that is a racial antagonism. The British considered themselves as superior and Indians as inferior. As a result, to show their superiority, that they had gone through various measures, that is separate railway compartments, parks, hotels, clubs, etc. had been reserved only for the Europeans. That is the main purpose is to create a social distance between the Indians and the Europeans as well as to preserve their authority in India. So that why did the British follow the policy of racial antagonism? Now moving towards the next point, that is a foreign policy. The two main aim of British foreign policy was the protection of Indian Empire or a protection of British Empire in India as well as the expansion of British economic and commercial interest in Asia and Africa. So that were the two aim of the British to follow their foreign policy. Then, but though they followed this policy, the cost of implementation of these policies must be met by the Indian revenue. Example had been given, British fought to conquer the neighboring states of Nepal and Burma. But the Indian soldiers had to fight and the Indian taxpayers had to pay the revenue to meet the cost of this the war. So that is the aim of foreign policy of the British in India. Now moving towards the next point, that is increased racial bitterness. So in order to, already the British had created the wedge between the Indians and the British or the Indians and the Europeans. Again to create a wedge between the Indians and the Europeans, the British termed Indians as unworthy of trust and also whenever they get a chance to insult and humiliate the Indians, they never misuse their opportunity. They insulted and humiliated the Indians. So that also created discontent among the Indians. Again comes the next point is the religious changes. So the British understood that the interference of Indian religions and social custom was the main cause for the outbreak of the revolt. So after the revolt of 1857, Queen Victoria emphatically proclaimed that they would not interfere in the social and religious customs of India after 1858. Now we have to go through the various changes army. That is why did the British bring various changes in the army? The purpose was to prevent the Indians any further reoccurrence of or to any further attack or revolt against the British. Then what were the various changes brought by the Indians? First and foremost, the one of the main encouragements for the Indians to fight against the British was the numerical strength of the Indian soldiers. So, after the revolt or after the 1858, when power had been transferred from company to crown, that the number of European troops had been increased to 1:2 in Bengal and 2:5 in Madras and Bombay. And they adopted a general principle that the Indian soldiers should not be double than that of the Europeans. Now comes to the next change was that you have the important strategic places like Delhi and Allahabad. It was fully occupied by the Indians. Now when the power had been transferred, the British considered or British were particular that the important strategic centers or the geographical centers would be directly under the control of British troops. Now the third point is so to resist the Indians from another revolt, all the sophisticated weapons and ammunitions had been directly placed under the control of the British, not the Indians. And also the various Indian artillery units, except certain mountain unit, had been disbanded. That is so that the Indians would not take up arms against the British. Next comes earlier, the recruitments had been made and everybody had been considered as equal. Education and the ability must be the qualification for the appointment. But here after and also promised that there should not be any discrimination made between the Indians and the Europeans as well as various sections of the Indians. But when the power had been transferred from company to crown, this discrimination had been followed, or discrimination based on caste, region and religion was practiced for the recruitment in the army. Again, in order to discourage nationalism, the various measures had been undertaken by the British government on caste and community in most of the regiment, so that each and every sections may fight against each other and there cannot be possible to bring any unity between the Indians and the different sections of the people of India. And the last, that is the various newspapers and journals and nationalist publications were prevented to enter in the or reach the army or the soldiers, so that they would not come into contact with the civilian population. Now comes the economic exploitation followed by the British. After the revolt of 1857, the territorial expansion came to an end, but the policy of economic exploitation had been followed by the British. Now, how the policy of economic exploitation followed by the British in India? First and foremost is India had been made a typical British colony, that is exporting of raw material at a cheaper rate and importing of finished goods at a high rate and sold it in the Indian market. Secondly, the salary and allowances of Secretary of State and his officials as well as various civil servants must be paid from Indian revenue. That already we have learned. As a office of Secretary of State had been created, and to assist him there was a council of 15 members. So, but they must be paid from the Indian revenue. Again, the peasants were impoverished by imposing high land revenue and also imposing high taxes over the peasants, as well as the peasants were asked to cultivate only indigo where the land fixed by the Europeans, and if any of the peasants cultivate any crops instead of indigo, the plants had been destroyed and their cattle were taken as taken as punishment. That already you have learned. Again, the artisans and the craftsmen were also impoverished. How? Because of the export of raw materials and the import of finished products, there was scarcity of raw material. And also Indians were mainly engaged in handicrafts. The handicrafts goods are so costly, so Indian artisans could not compete with the machine-made product of British. Again, the Indians had to pay heavy interest and dividends on the British capital invested in India. That is, when the power had been transferred from a company to crown. Earlier, only East India Company, that is a private company, so that only the members of the company had carried on trade with India. But when power had been transferred, those who all the British, those who had extra capital or those who were engaged in railways, plantation, coal mines, jute mills, etc., they can invest their capital in India and earn the maximum profit. So the Indians had to pay heavy interest and dividend on the British capital invested by the British in India. Next is the rise of nationalism. How did the nationalism happen? Means the revolt of 1857 paved the way for rise of national movement as well as the sacrifices made by the various Indian leaders like Rani Lakshmi Bai, as well as Nana Saheb, Mangal Pandey. They were the source of inspiration for the Indians as well as their heroic struggle taught a lesson or valuable tradition to the Indians to resist or oppose the foreign rule or British rule in India. Now moving to the last consequence, that is widening the gulf between the Hindus and the Muslims. So already we have learned that through the policy of divide and rule, they created a wedge between the Hindus and the Muslims, and also why did the British follow this divide and rule policy? Because it was a deliberate attempt of the British so that the two communities never unite together to pose a threat against the British rule in India. So these were the various consequences or results of the revolt of 1857. Now moving to the nature of the revolt of 1857. Already I have told you in the beginning of the lesson why is the revolt known as the first war of Indian independence and the Sepoy Mutiny. So the Indian historians have hailed this revolt as the first war of Indian independence or first war of independence. The example the historians like V.D. Savarkar or the Vinayak Damodar Savarkar as well as S.N. Sen emphasize it is the first war of Indian independence. And also why is it known as the first war of Indian independence? Because the various sections of the people of India like Jamindars, peasants, rulers, the soldiers, chieftains, etc. directly or indirectly took part in the revolt. And why is it known as a Sepoy Mutiny? So the British historian to reduce to show the strength of the revolt, British historian had termed it as the Sepoy Mutiny. Then already I told you who was a Sepoy. That is the Indian soldier in the British army. So a revolt which took place in the Indian army. So they termed it as the Sepoy Mutiny. So our first lesson as a whole from my part came to an end or over. Now it is your duty. Go through all the 5 questions and see that whether if you are able to attempt the question or not. And in the one of the students had asked the doubt that whether why the revolt is not, sorry, why the East India Company is so cold. Already I have told you in the lesson when I started to teach the consequence of the revolt, but again I will repeat that it is known as it is known as East India Company because it was a private company started in England to carry on trade with the East. That is why it is known as the East India Company. Then another doubt was that is unimportant. That whether madam shall we write all the inside questions. That automatically you know that you have to write down all the inside questions in your notebook so that you will be clear with your spelling. The grammatical mistake will not be there you will be able to learn thoroughly. So as a result, do all your level best, and we will continue the next lesson. Thank you.